Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a long overdue episode of the Puck Buddies podcast. My name is Zach. I'm joined with Kurt, and we're going to be doing a bit of a season preview on the day of the season starting.
We are back, finally. It's been a while, but we're ready to go. It's a new season, and we're ready to kick it off with a little rundown of the divisions and how we think everything's going to shake out by the end of the season.
Absolutely. So today we'll be starting with the Atlantic Division. We're going to give you a run through of each of the teams in each division, and then afterwards we're going to talk about which teams we think are going to be contenders and maybe duke it out a little bit over our opinions on that front, as we've already kind of talked about.
My correct opinions and your incorrect opinions.
Okay, yeah, sure. Whatever you say. So I'll start with the Bruins here.
The Bruins are going to be dominant once again.
Yep.
Now, they had a shorter offseason than most teams because they played later than the rest of them.
Yeah.
But this top line is still so dominant. It's still the top line.
They're probably the best line in the NHL.
Yeah. So hopefully you have them on your fantasy teams, and you're going to see them score a lot of goals this year.
Yeah, you probably like that, having Pasternak.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, they locked up Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah, that's huge for them.
He was the RFA.
I can see him being the future captain of this organization.
Before Torrey Krug?
Yeah. So Torrey Krug, he's a free agent at the end of the season.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So he may go home. I think he's a UFA. I'm not sure if he's a UFA or RFA. But a lot of people are expecting him to want to be in Detroit.
That would be great for Detroit. But
Detroit, anything would be great for Detroit.
Anything would be really good for Detroit right about now. I would probably, I don't know, yeah, Boston Bruins are going to be a top team again. Really, I like their grinders. Like, they're top to bottom. They're a good team. There's a reason they were in the Cup Finals last season.
Yeah.
I think Charlie Coyle's a stud player in that bottom six.
Yeah. Now, they gave up quite a bit to get Charlie Coyle there for the run at the end. So you kind of hope that Charlie Coyle can, be as good as he can be.
Yeah, and Jake DeBrusk is looking good too. I mean, I looked at their top power play unit going into the season, which is Krug on the point. They play like a 1-3-1 power play, and I think that with the line that they have in there, which is the Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak, and then putting Jake DeBrusk in front of the net, that's deadly. That's a good combination.
Yeah,
so,
that's dangerous.
I think the Bruins again contender.
Yeah, once again, just a real gritty team, and they're gonna grind it out and get a bunch of wins.
Yeah, Rask is still gonna be solid. I mean, there's not really much else to say about the Bruins at this point.
We'll go on to the next team here. We got the Buffalo Sabres. A very young team, so they're still lacking in their veteran presence, and they have a new coach in there, so there's a lot to wonder what we're gonna see with this team.
Yeah,
but there is upside. There is that bright spot of these young guys are going to continue to develop this season and see what you can get.
You know, it's got your Eichels, your Middlestad's going to have to step up and be a solid second line center.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that we talked about this a little bit. Do you think Skinner is going to be able to do it again with his points run that he had last season? I mean, he cooled off towards the end of the season. I mean, a lot of players did.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He started off so hot, and this team started off so hot.
Yeah.
And that's what, it made his numbers so inflated on the season.
That's honestly a classic Buffalo Sabres move, is to start really hot in a season. I can't remember how many years ago it was. We would have been in our teens, but they went 20-0 to start a season or something like that.
They were literally the reverse St. Louis Blues last year.
Yeah, they reversed the St. Louis Blues. Just they took the place of them. The thing that I had the biggest question about, I mean, apart from them being young talent, they don't have a guy like Brian Gionta in the dressing room anymore to mentor these young guys. Really, who's your mentor guy? But the biggest question that I have is Carter Hutton and Linus Ullmark a good enough duo to back you up? Especially if it's a young team in front of you, you want to have a goalie behind you that's got a lot of experience in those situations. A Mike Smith might not be the greatest goalie ever, but having him in net in front of that team might be a better situation than a young Linus Ullmark and a Carter Hutton who's been a career backup basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think these are necessarily the guys for their future. But then again, I'm not expecting a whole lot from them this season. I think they could impress, but I see them skipping the playoffs again.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about Skinner, I just like to see more of a balanced outcome from him. Not where he needs to put up those godly numbers like last year that was all front half based.
Yeah.
Just kind of spread it out and, produce throughout the season. I mean, he signed a big contract. He got roughly $1 million more per season than he would have got elsewhere because they just wanted him to stay.
Yeah, and they needed beyond Jack Eichel, what do you really have as like the quote unquote face of your franchise? Rasmus Dahlin is like quiet as a mouse outside of the ice. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't even seen him really talk in interviews too much, and he doesn't seem like he's going to develop as quickly as they would need him to. So having a Jeff Skinner in there is a good idea.
Yeah.
It's just going to be like he needs to produce consistently across the whole season. I'd rather him have a 32 to 35 goal season if it's like spread out throughout the whole thing, rather than him having like a 40 goal season where he scores 25 of those before December.
Yeah. Understandable. All we can do is wait and see with the Buffalo Sabres.
Next one's a big yikers.
Yep. So the Detroit Red Wings,
Oof.
they're still a long ways away from being contenders. But what do you expect after contending for like 22 consecutive years?
24.
24.
I say this all the time. I'm a Red Wings fan by blood, but a Flyers fan by choice. I grew up in a Red Wings household. I know the ins and outs of this team. And to this day, it still hurts me to see them performing the way that they are. But they got Stevie Y behind the helm. We saw what he did with the, quite frankly, atrocious Tampa Bay Lightning after that Stanley Cup run in 2004. Where were they?
Yeah, they were not pretty.
They were, and technically they shouldn't have even won that if you go back to that goal that crossed the line. But we're going to be trusting in Steve Yzerman to turn the ship around the same way that he did in Tampa Bay. I like the Calvin Pickard pickup, because with few remaining years left on their contracts, both Bernier and Howard are going to become chips at the deadline, I think.
Yeah, I thought Howard was going to be one this year, this last season.
Well, he should have been. I've been touting this for a long time. Jimmy Howard, he's a great city guy. He's a great Michigan boy. He's not a good goalie. He's just not a good goalie. And if he gets traded at the deadline and they get something for him, great. I'll be so happy. That's all you can really hope for. But with Pickard at least kind of behind those two, it gives them a bit of a kick in the butt to at least try to perform better during the season, knowing that their job could be on the line at any point, even as the backup or even if they're splitting time.
Yeah.
So I like that. Larkin's going to be the next captain. That's another note. I mean, other than that, I don't expect... the Red Wings need to tank. They need to not pull a typical Detroit Red Wings and win a bunch of games at the end of the year and screw their lottery chances. That's what they need to do.
I think they made a nice pick this past year, grabbing that young defenseman.
Yeah, big boy.
Stevie comes in, and he grabs what seems to be one of his favorite guys, Valtteri Filppula, who he traded for when he went to Tampa.
Yeah, he brought him to Tampa with him, and now he's bringing him back to...
He loves the guy. We'll see what he can do.
I mean, Val Filppula isn't an incredible numbers guy, but he's like... I think he's I don't know, a lot of people like Franz Nielsen, but I think Filppula is a better Franz Nielsen in the sense that he's a great two-way player. He's a reliable player you can have on your line. You can throw him on the PK, and he's reliable. And he's technically in that room, now with Cronwall retiring, who do these young guys have to look up to, really?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of mentorship there beyond guys like Nielsen.
This is why I see the Red Wings finishing second last in the entire league.
Second last would be a good season. Larkin still holds fantasy value. Mantha and Athanasiou do too. But yeah, that's pretty much the Red Wings for you. Next, we've got the Florida Panthers.
Well improved team.
Yes.
So yeah, they definitely have the pieces here to contend this season. They went out and spent a lot of money on a goaltender, but that's really what they needed. That's where they've been struggling a lot in the past.
Luongo retires too, so they had to get somebody to be their number one.
Wow, Luongo only retired because he knew he wasn't going to beat the guy.
He wasn't going to get brought in, right? And I mean, it was, call it a career. He's a Hall of Fame goalie. He'll end up in the Hall for sure when his time comes knocking. But Bobrovsky,
yeah, $10 million tender.
He's a top 3 fantasy goalie, probably a top 3 goalie in the league. He finishes in Vezina contention a lot of the time these days. I mean, Russia's producing good goalies. There's probably only one goalie in the NHL that's Russian that's better than him, and I'm sure you'll learn that this week in our fantasy matchup.
Oh God.
Yeah, he's a good goalie. What they need though, and I think that is like going to be a condition to their success, like a win condition for them, is that Huberdeau finally becomes like a 60+ point guy on a consistent basis, and Hoffman's going to have to at least be scoring 30.
I think I think Huberdeau needs to be more than that.
You think more than that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he can be more than that.
He's been playing below his potential for a long time, but you can't really blame him because he hasn't had like a ton of pieces around him to do that. But now they've got not the best back end, but a solid back end. They've got guys like Ekblad and Yandel who can work a power play.
Yeah.
They got some young defensemen in their core as well. They've also got Barkov leading the way up in center, and he's one of the best two-way centers in the NHL with that long reach. For some reason, he uses the stick it's so long.
Oh yeah.
You ever watch him take a shootout attempt, and you're just like, this guy's literally using a broom. Like,
I don't have to watch him. I see that he's going for a shootout, and I just go, it's in.
Yeah, he's got solid shootout percentage numbers, but
the biggest thing with this team this year, the biggest addition they made, which makes me love them the most, is Coach Q.
Oh yeah,
Joel Quenneville in there. So I think with him and this team, I think they're just gonna really build off each other, and they're just gonna have an excellent season.
It does kind of, and it's a good situation for Quenneville because when Quenneville came into Chicago, he had I don't know, Chicago of the early Quenneville days is like a similar build to what Florida has here. Mm-hmm. They've got a goalie who's not coming out of a shell, but who's kind of starting to prove himself and has proved himself in the previous season. That's more than they could have said for Corey Crawford when he came into that Chicago team.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you got some young forwards who have a really good chance to grow together if they put Huberdeau with Barkov. I mean, yeah. I expect the Florida Panthers to make the playoffs.
Yes, as do I. Quenneville wasn't going to go in a situation where he wasn't going to have an opportunity to win.
I think he likes the tax-free state and the nice weather.
Oh, yeah, that's true. All right, so we both have them slated to make the playoffs this year. Let's go on to our next team here. We're in Canada. We got the Montreal Canadiens. Now, this is another young team.
Yep.
Their upward trend is coming. We saw what Domi did last year, which was very nice for them.
Mm-hmm. He was a good fantasy pickup.
Yep. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, another year for him. It'll be nice for them. And the thing with them is they have Carey Price, and he's not getting any younger.
But he's also not getting any worse.
You're right, but this guy wants to win.
Yeah, he wants like a cup to his name because without that, it's hard to consider him in that upper echelon of goalies, and you want to be able to do that because he has the caliber to be mentioned. Like when he retires and it's all said and done, he should be mentioned up along your Martin Brodeurs and your Roberto Luongos, like guys who are have led that legendary Canadian goalie status.
Mm-hmm.
Price should finish his career with that, but without a cup,
Yeah. Well, the biggest problem for him not winning a cup is he plays in Canada and they don't win cups there.
No, it seems to be a problem.
It's been a long time, yes. So, I think this team will take another step forward. I can see them just missing the playoffs, like a few points out.
They'll be in the run. If they, put it this way, if they make it, I won't be surprised. It'll be like a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Kind of. Shea Weber on the back end. They added Jeff Petrie and Ben Sherratt, who are two kind of heavy body defensemen, but can move a little bit better than Shea Weber, who anchors on the power play. So, I mean, yeah, and, Victor Mete coming up he's another young guy in their system who I think has the potential to be a good offensive defenseman and something that they need. There's some trade rumors with Duran, but I don't think there's any, credence that should be given to those rumors. He's in a place where he has the potential to succeed. And, that's probably it for the Canadians. I mean, we think they might make it, but in a most likely scenario, if everything shakes down the way it should, they'll end up barely missing it.
Yeah, they'll be right there on the cusp. They're not going to be a bottom team. They'll
the middle of the pack team.
Yeah, and then we want to see another step from Ryan Foling there. We want to see if he can keep up his 3 goals per game average that he had last season. Yeah, that was just a joke.
Yeah,
of course. Gets a 1-game tryout right at the end of the season.
He can't. I'm pretty
goals.
sure he's actually scratched for some. I don't think he's starting the season with them. I think he has some concussion issues, so they're sending him to the AHL for some conditioning games before they bring him back up. Yeah, they got some young guys playing. Nick Suzuki and who's the other guy? Cale Fleury, maybe that's his name. I wish I knew. I know Nick Suzuki, he played in the O, but they got 2 young guys who did end up making the roster, and that's pretty cool. But again, it's there's other teams that don't have these issues to work out as the season goes on. They're going to hit the ground running, and their teams in this division, so it's a tough division for them, for the Canadians to get out of.
Speaking of tough division, how are the Ottawa Senators going to do this season?
Like I feel like if we dedicate any more than like 2 minutes of talking about the Ottawa Senators, like we're overdoing it. They're like, what do you talk about?
Yeah. They say if you ain't first, you're last. The Senators are going to be last. Dead
Senators
last.
should finish last. I mean, what do they have going for them right now other than Thomas Chabot, who they locked up for a long time?
Big time, yeah.
I mean, he got a good payday for that. He's probably got to realize that, hey, I have the chance to be Erik Karlsson. You know,
Yeah.
I can look way better than I am because everybody on my team sucks.
Are you talking shit about Erik Karlsson?
Erik
Karlsson's winning a cup this
I
year.
might be throwing a little shade his way, but I probably have you on tape somewhere saying, "How is Karlsson so good?" He was good in Ottawa because there's no one in front of him, and now there's even less people in front of Thomas Chabot. They've got Craig Anderson in net, who is probably going to die in the crease at some point this season because he's going to be
doing what he loves.
Yeah, last season he took an average of like 41 or 42 shots a game, and it's going to be that, if not more, this season. So it's yikes. That's all I want to say for the Ottawa Senators is yikes. And
The plus side of the Ottawa Senators this season is they have the first round draft pick.
they can lock it up. They really could.
Yeah, last year they didn't have a first round draft pick, so this year they do. And I mean, we can really kind of see the shape of the nucleus that this team is looking towards for their future, kind of coming into shape. We got Brady Tkachuk, Colin White, and Connor Brown as their top line, and we really want to see these kids take another step forward. I think Brady Tkachuk could be an absolute superstar.
Yeah, he's going to he puts up great fantasy numbers. He's a guy who's going to be gritty. He's somebody who can stand in front of the net on the power play, but can still, put the puck in the net and bury it when he's given the opportunity to do so. So, I mean, he could, if Thomas Chabot doesn't get it, he could also be a future captain.
Yeah, and we also got Eric Brandstrom, who I want to see what he does this season. He was the guy that got in the trade at the deadline.
People have been kind of rooting for him to make a stride forward and start to show what he can do. Lots of potential there. So it'd be nice to see Anthony Duclair take another step forward. I feel like he's been a flop, kind of.
I think he is. I think we know what Anthony Duclair is, and I think he's just a serviceable player for them this season.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him. But, I mean, to absolutely contrast the worst team in the division, we can move on to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
The Tampa Bay Lightning. Wow. I mean, we have talked extensively about the playoffs and how they just shocked the world with how poorly they came out.
It's a big yikers for them, but like, what are you gonna do? They got to put that behind you now.
Oh, I think that's gonna motivate them to even go harder this year.
Yeah,
they will be in the playoffs. This is not a question. They could all half-ass it most of the year and make the playoffs. And when they're in the playoffs, they need to just not suck.
I think, okay, and I don't want to go back in time too much for this part, but just as a little aside here, for them to draw Columbus in the first round was almost the perfect storm for them to lose. Again, you had mentioned in a previous podcast that Columbus had been in playoff mode for a long time. They had brought in some really good pieces like Ryan Dzingel and Matt Duchene at the deadline. They had one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie of the season last year, in Sergei Bobrovsky. Like the Lightning came up against who could have been their toughest opponent in the entire Eastern Conference, barring maybe Boston.
Yeah.
In the first round. And so the sweep was unexpected, but they could have lost that series either way. And going into this season, you're right. They should use it as motivation. They should use it to, let's put up 120 points, win that President's Trophy again, and then let's not lose a game in the playoffs. Let's just keep on trucking. They have every part that they need. Braden Point coming out of his shell, somehow getting paid less than Mitch Marner for like 2 points less a season.
Oh my God. I think Braden Point is probably better than Mitch Marner. I love Braden Point so much.
Such a good player.
Yeah. Like, round of applause to Steve Yzerman. He's a third-round pick.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
It was surprising, too, because I remember watching Braden Point when he was in his World Junior year. He was the 13th forward.
Yeah.
He didn't get hardly any playing time in that tournament. And I was like, I thought this guy was really good. I looked at his, Western Hockey League stats. He was tearing it up and a lot of potential. Now he's in a position where he can be a solid second line center, or they can put him on the first line and have Stammer on the wing.
He did have surgery, so he will miss roughly the first month of the season.
Yeah, I've heard that he's going to be out until about start of November-ish. But it's not like they don't have guys to fill in that position. Guys like Andre Palat who have a ton of experience under their belt.
The team is just so deep.
It's a deep team.
Yeah.
Their defense core is very good. They have Vasilevsky, who I personally think is the best goalie in the NHL.
I think, yeah, hands down, especially with that team in front of them. It's hard not to be. But at the same time, this team is going to have success. The only thing they really lost this season, you said, was Yzerman.
And he was kind of gone last season, like he had taken that step down.
Yeah, so this team is just going to be great once again. It shocked the world that they, most people picked them to win the cup, and they didn't. So people are probably going to pick them again and hope it's a different story this season.
Yeah, they could definitely come out not only winning the division, but they could potentially win the conference and the President's Trophy again. They're a contender. There's no doubts about that. The only team that is, I guess, maybe another contender out of this division is the last team in this division. Your Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, yay. Marner signs.
Yes.
It's over, finally. I don't have to listen to day after day after day of where's Marner? What's he doing?
I know this podcast is overdue, but there was a couple days in like late August where I think we were like considering doing it, and then we looked at the list of RFAs that still hadn't signed, and it was going to basically just be an entire episode of if this guy signs, this is how it looks, but he still got to sign first. Who knows? There's too many what ifs going around with the RFA situation.
Yeah, it's a scary situation. It makes me wonder where it's going to be next season, right? I think this crop of RFAs was much better than the next group coming up. So
yeah, it's a peculiar situation that the RFAs left, and Mitch Marner's at the tip of that iceberg because
they were all waiting for him to sign to see what they could ask for, basically.
Exactly, and Rantanen's contract after that give them similar numbers. The season's coming. You got to wonder, is Mitch Marner going to be able to put up the same kind of numbers that he did last season? You get the line projections for the Maple Leafs, and knowing Mike Babcock, that's going to last all of 10 minutes if things aren't going right.
Yeah.
Marner's going to put up points. He puts up a ton of assists. He's an energy guy. He's a hometown kid. So, understandably, to get locked up long term the way he did is
it's good for them. You got Kadri out and Barry in.
That's a win. I think that was a win for Toronto.
That's huge
because they got Kerfoot in that trade
Alex
too,
Kerfoot.
And that's a depth player, but he's a roster player, a consistent roster player, somebody who they're going to have to add into their bottom six probably.
Yeah.
And Tyson Barrie on the blue line finally gives somebody like Morgan Rielly some backup, I guess.
Yeah, he's not the only guy.
It wasn't that he was the only guy. He's had some good defensive defensemen with him in the past.
Yeah.
But he needs somebody who can help him anchor that power play. Mm-hmm. And, yeah.
So I'm thinking with the Leafs, it's a scary situation because they got the cap and all these people want money, these players.
Yeah.
So the time is running out. I mean, for them, they're going to have to win it soon because their defense is going to be falling off. Morgan Rielly's got a upcoming deal. I think Barry's a free agent at the end of the season, and so is Muzzin.
Yeah.
So
you can only keep two of those three guys. There's no doubts about that.
I mean, they lost Jake Gardiner this season due to cap.
Gardiner is a trash defenseman, dude. I don't know. I don't have strong opinions about too many NHL players, but he's one of the guys that I think, like, I watch the way he turns the puck over and some of the decisions he makes on the ice. At a certain point, all of the good things that you do need to be able to, minimize the bad things that you do, and there's lots of games where that doesn't happen, and I don't know. He's in Carolina now.
Yeah.
Maybe greener pastures there for him. Maybe the Toronto, it's a lot of players shake that Toronto media bug and shake the pressure, and they go somewhere else and they excel, they do well. But it's an interesting situation, but I don't think he's going to, be a top defenseman. But adding Barrie was a good thing. Toronto, the only question is now, it's like, you're right, it's like a time bomb.
Yeah.
So they have it. There's a clock on their years that they can make a run.
It sucks. There's so many teams in this league, they keep building for a couple of years and they have the team to do it. And if you don't do it, it's time to rebuild again, and it was all for nothing. And there's a couple teams. There's a couple teams that are at that point now where it's like, we have to win.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because I like to see these teams that have been doing this and they're succeeding to win, but they can't all win. So, you'd like to see a team like the Leafs win. Unfortunately, my team is also kind of at that point. So, sorry, Leafs.
How are you going to feel if it's just this is another quick aside here, Leafs Sharks final? How are you going to feel?
Actually, that was the ESPN prediction from last season.
That was a Leafs Sharks final.
ESPN?
The NHL,
EA Sports.
Yeah, where they'd
simulation.
Yeah,
said the Sharks would beat the Leafs in 7 last year.
You know what they said it was going to be this year?
Yeah, stupid Vegas. No, Vegas versus
Boston, and Boston wins it.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I won't even watch that final.
Yeah,
it's funny because last year it said Sharks, Leafs, and this year it says Bruins, Knights. Literally the arch rivals of the other teams.
Yeah, which is, and I mean, we'll see how. I mean, that's just how EA is building their games. But that is going to wrap up the Atlantic Division. As far as positioning, I think we can both agree that it's probably going to be a 1-2 between the Lightning are going to finish first, right?
Yeah, it's not a 1-2. Lightning are 1.
I'm saying like done. The one like so.
Book it.
Who's going to be the second then? Because I think the Bruins are going to finish above the Leafs.
No, that's 2-3 kind of thing. Bruins Leafs could be flip flopped. It could even come down to their head to head record, and I'd give it to the Bruins.
Yeah, and then the Panthers probably get out.
Yeah, they'll be in that next spot. Will they sneak into a?
It'll have to be a wild card.
A wild card spot. Yeah. Yes, because I don't believe in the Metro as much.
Metro's probably the weakest division.
No, Pacific.
You think the Pacific's weak?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah. And look, yeah. Okay. I'll give you that. Alrighty, that wraps up the Atlantic Division. Catch us in the next episode, which we'll talk about the Metropolitan Division.
Yes.
Following that will be an episode on the Central and then the Pacific, and they'll come out once every other day following this one. You guys can make sure to check us out on social media, Instagram and Twitter. This is also available if you're listening on SoundCloud. We have a YouTube channel, vice versa. We have a SoundCloud if you're listening on YouTube and you want to follow us on those platforms. That'd be greatly appreciated. All right, thanks, guys.